Hi everybody, all my followers, welcome to another video. The video today is on a Citroen C4 Picasso. This is the 1.8 petrol and I believe this is a 2008. And funny enough, yesterday, this was dropped here yesterday, and I was asked to look at two issues. One was the battery light was on, and the other issue is that light in there, that orange light. So there is a fault with the airbags. My plan of attack was to sort the battery light first. However, I got here this morning, just now, literally 30 seconds before I started the video, started the car, and there's no battery light, which is a little bit odd. But nevertheless, we're gonna try to do an inspection around the engine, around the battery, see if everything's plugged in okay, and all that good stuff. If you watch my videos, you probably by now you have watched the video that I've done on a 307, 308, where the battery monitoring system was faulty and was not charging the battery and some other stuff. So anyway, and my plan of attack, as I was saying, was to sort that out first. But now, well, I think I'm gonna ignore that for now, because I have no battery light, and we're gonna go to the airbag. So the first thing we're gonna do, so this video is gonna be for the airbag, obviously. So the first thing we're gonna do is, obviously, we're gonna plug the scanner and see what the scanner tells us. Okay, and just now I've just opened the glove box looking for the port, and the battery light came on, and it comes up with a message saying, I don't know, let's scroll through the message, but basically says battery charging. Oh, there it is. So battery charge or electrical supply faulty. Okay, so that's the faults. And now, yes, I'm gonna look at the battery first. That's the plan of attack anyway, and I will leave the airbag light for later. So I think this video, guys, I've just said would be for the airbag, will be for the battery, because I'm going to do separate videos. And so we're going to check the battery first. So sorry, we just changed the subject. This video is going to be for the battery. Okay, so nevertheless, still we're going to plug in the maxi sys. I want to see live data, how much the alternator is charging, and we'll go from there, really. Wow, what a Christmas tree, guys. So as I was plugging the maxi sys, I've touched the steering wheel, and the power steering was like sort of jittering. So it was like if I had power steering, then I didn't, then I had, then I didn't, and it was but constantly doing that. And I start to get all those warnings in there for ABS, for power steering, and brake. I think we have a power supply issue somewhere to start with. So let's gonna actually plug the maxi sys and go from there. Okay, guys. Oh, it's cold today, and it looks like the battery is not being charged at all. So I don't know what the background was with the car, but basically I plug in the maxi sys, as you've seen, and all this good stuff, and all of a sudden the car just started to shake everywhere, start to misfiring, all the panels start to get dim. So basically the battery was running out. It was clear to me that the battery was running out. So what I've done is I've quick switched off. Be very careful, special Peugeots and Citroens with low battery voltage, because they can cause all sorts of damage. So as soon as I've realized that, turn it off, left it, just put the battery on charge. So the battery is charging right now, and I'm going to try still now to scan the car with the charger plugged in. I should have enough battery, obviously, to keep everything going. And yeah, let's gonna scan the car and go from there. Okay, and let's gonna start to go through some of the codes. It's a bit of glare. Right, this is the BSI, and as you can see, I have all these codes here. Okay, nothing for, we have reinitialization, fault coming from the BSI and other stuff. So I think, shall we clear these codes? Yeah, why not? While we're here, clear that. Actually, let's gonna do something else, because I went straight to the BSI. Let's gonna do something else, and then I will come back to you. So at the moment I have the ignition on. The panel went off because the car is in economy mode, but there's no airbag lights anymore, airbags, ABS lights or handbrake fault. So when I've turned the ignition on, so my charger is outputting 13.5 volts nearly. So you're gonna see that I turned the ignition on. It tells me economy mode, but as you can see, there's no other faults on the car. Nothing else comes up, as you can see. Okay, as you can see, so all the faults that were here earlier, most likely they were down to the low battery voltage that was creating all sorts of glitches. So what I'm gonna do actually, guys, is I'm gonna do an auto scan, because that way I can go through all the ECUs and try to figure out if there's anything in there. Most likely won't be. Most likely we have a bad alternator, perhaps. We don't know yet, but we'll go from there. Let's gonna let it to scan, and then we'll come back. Okay, so the scan is finished, and as you can see, I have faults in loads of modules. Let's gonna go to my electric pump, which was doing that weird thing. I'm sure it was low voltage that would cause the pump not to run properly, because this is the electric one. Power on fault, ECU internal fault, vehicle speed data. So I will ignore these last ones. I believe it's going to be that power on fault. It's going to go back. Actually, we can do something here. Just clear the codes. Vehicle speed data fault, we'll leave that for now. I think he's going to stay there until he sees the vehicle data. What's that? Electronic parking brake. Okay, there we go. ECU supply under voltage. It's gonna go to another one. Let me go to the airbag ABS. Okay, turbo codes. Full release of parking brake or with drivetrain interface. So nothing here for voltage, but actually, let me go back. I'm not gonna hold on. Let me see another one that would might have. Let me see the injection. It's gonna have all sorts of in there, I'm sure. So alternator, well, oh, that's good. Look, battery voltage and alternator. Communication with the controlled alternator. It might be that we have a good alternator now, and we just have the communication wire that's gone. Let's go back. Okay, I think while we're doing this, what I'm trying to allow is that is for the battery to charge a little bit. So I can then start the engine, unplug the charger, and see exactly how much voltage I have coming out from the alternator. But I think it's quite easy to see by now that I'm going to have no voltage coming out. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a quick erase. It's going to ask me for this, just hold a sec. Okay, and after the erase we have the injection 6 volts, because in economy mode I can't really go through the mileage, so I couldn't clear that. We have the airbags, as we know we had before, and we have the one on the electric pump. So on the airbags, what we have there, still, this is gonna be for a separate video, as I've said at the beginning. Front left side airbag ignition module fault. Okay, ignition module, okay. So we'll leave that for later. For now, what we're gonna do, let me see what we're gonna do. I'm going to allow the battery to charge a little bit longer, and once I have enough charge to have the engine running on its own, I will be measuring the battery output, and we'll go from there. Maybe test the battery, and we'll go from there. Okay, and the battery has been charging now for about an hour or so it should be okay. But before and while the battery is charging, I went through the diagrams, and I just want to show you something here that we're going to check later, because I'm quite convinced that we're going to start the engine and we're going to have low, if any, voltage coming out from that alternator. So, according to my diagrams, what we have is the following. So I have the battery, and I have obviously the negative is grounded to the chassis. Then we have the positive side, which one cable goes up to that fuse tray on top of the battery on these cars. So this car doesn't have that battery charging monitoring system, whatever that is, which is a little bit of an electronic part that goes in front of the battery. This car doesn't have that, so it goes straight to there. And then you have another cable which goes to the starter motor, which is also called on Citroen diagrams 1010 is the number of the module or the part, whatever, is 1010. And it goes to the starter motor, and then you have only another wire that goes to the crank signal. Then from there the cable carry on to the alternator, which is also called 1020, part 1020. So, and that's where the cable ends. So this is going to be my thick cable on the alternator. Then there is a plug onto the alternator, a 2-pin plug, but only one wire is connected, and that wire goes straight to my engine ECU, which is module 1320. And as you can see, it goes to plug B4. So it is my 32 wires or 32 pins. MR stands for marron, which is French. So it's 32 pins, marron, so brown, sorry, brown, marron is brown. So 32 pin brown plug on my engine ECU. Wire number 1085. So if I look properly on a wire, I should have stamped somewhere in there 1085. And B4, which is my pin number, so is B4. So row B, pin number 4. And I should have obviously continuity between this wire and the alternator. So we're gonna establish first that the alternator is not charging, which we already know that anyway, but we're just gonna make sure, just gonna double check. And then the first thing I'm gonna do, and I'm going now based on that code on the engine ECU, about the signal something on the alternator. We're gonna measure that signal from the ECU to the alternator, make sure we have continuity in there, and yeah, and I think that's it really. We'll carry on from there. So first we're gonna disconnect the charger, start the engine, and see what voltage we have coming out from there. Okay, and we have the multimeter connected, and we have 13.48 is dropping down. The reason why I have 13 volts is because literally I've just disconnected the charger. But now we're gonna start the engine and see what we get. And we're gonna start it. It should start just fine. Exactly. And as you're gonna see, we have no codes now. So all the faults I had earlier, they're all gone. It was purely battery too low. We only have the airbag. But let's gonna now check the battery voltage coming out. Okay. And I think it's quite self-explanatory, because I should have, there we go, and it's dropping down. And it's going to be dropping down because all the consumables, obviously everything is consuming power from all these panels, the engine ECU, everything is consuming power. So obviously that is going to discharge the battery. So I'm going to turn the engine off again, and as you have seen, there is no charge being outputted by the alternator. So now we need to figure out if we have a problem on my control wire to the alternator, or if we have a bad alternator itself. Okay, so the plug has been removed, and I have one probe on my wire. There's only one wire anyway that goes onto that plug in there, and that should come, as we saw on my diagram, marron, so brown plug, and that's second row, so row B, pin number 4, and we have 0.3 ohms. So we have a good wire, a good connection here. And the next thing I've done, just in case, we measure this big wire here, the voltage output from here all the way to the battery, and that just checked out okay as well. Okay, and my next check, I have everything set up in there. Just didn't want to be recording there because it's going to be noisy, but my next thing to check is going to be my PWM signal from the engine ECU to the alternator. So this signal here, guys, is a power modulated signal. So as the car needs charge, that time on the signal is going to change, and that's how the ECU tells the alternator how much charge to output. So I have the scope connected. I will quick show you before, and then we're going to start the engine, and I'm going to show you on the screen. It's going to be a little bit off glare, so just bear in mind the batteries already start to get a little bit low as well. So but yeah, I'm going to show you. So I have my scope connected to this wire, which goes into there. I also have my multimeter, but doesn't really matter, we're not going to need it. And then we have the ground that comes all the way to the chassis, and that's my signal. Okay, I'm going to try then to show you as best as I can. So as you can see, we have a flat line at 0 volts right now. We're going to start the engine and look at that signal. So I'm going to come here, start the engine, and that's going to look at what the ECU is telling us. And there we go. So we have a signal, and if I do that, if I increase the timing, there it is. Okay. So what does that prove to us? And this is just before I completely blame the alternator. I just want to make sure the ECU is doing what's supposed to be doing, because if I had a flat line in there right now, then it could be that my alternator was actually good and my problem could be the ECU. But as you have seen, we have a signal in there, so my next step is gonna most likely remove the alternator and go from there. Really, we could have a bad voltage regulator, maybe, things like that. I usually just get the wall alternator most of the times. There's a place not far away from here that actually does repair alternators. So we're gonna take the alternator out because that's the next step. As we have seen, guys, we established my fault is the alternator, so I don't need to lose time on anything else. So we're gonna remove the alternator. I'll take you through how to take it off. Okay, to start with, I removed the cable, so obviously I've disconnected the battery, so we're not gonna short nothing here. So you take this cable off, and that's it. And now to remove the belt, you have a square 3/4 in there, 3/4 hole in there, square, where you can put a 3/4 socket in there straight. And all you do now is, as I lift this, I pull the idler. Hold on a second, see if I can show you. And that's gonna release my belt, and I will be able to just slide the belt out. So we're gonna take the belt and then take the bolts for the alternator. Okay, and once you take these two bolts at the top, so that one and that one, theoretically you wouldn't need to remove it because you could just slide it this way, but because we don't have the room, I took both off. You can swing this forward or tilt this forward to give you better access to the one right there, and to the one, where's the other one? Right there at the bottom. You can barely see it, right there. So we're gonna take those two and the alternator should come out. Okay guys, and my bad when I said you could get away without taking the bolts at the back, because I thought they would slide in through this sleeve, but they don't. you actually need to take all 4 bolts. So 1, 2, 3, 4. The ones at the back are these conical ones. They look like wheel nuts, and once you do that, the alternator comes off. Okay guys, and now that we have the alternator out, I'm gonna decide what to do. I'm gonna speak with the owner, see if he wants me to get a new one, if he wants me to get a second-hand one, if he wants me to try to get this one reconditioned. I don't know yet what's gonna happen, but I will let you know when we... Okay, and a few days later we are back, and the first thing I would like to say is I might put some text at the bottom. Is back in the video when I referred to that signal from the ECU to the alternator as a power with modulated signal. Is not power, it's pulse with pulse. I don't know why I keep going back to power. I don't know, I just apologize. Is a pulse with modulation or modulated signal. And that said, I have the alternator. So after speaking to the owner, we decided that I would take the alternator to these guys just around the corner. They do alternators, starter motors, all that sort of stuff for repairs. And I didn't even attempt to open this myself. I just took it there, left it in there. I was working after that anyway in the meantime. So we got the alternator repaired and it's here ready to fit. We also have a new drive belt because this belt I've seen better days, as you can see. So we're going to replace the belt as well. And that's what we're going to do now. I'm not going to take you through the refit. It's pretty much the reverse. So we're going to fit the new alternator or the repaired alternator, put a new belt, and we should be good to go. Another thing I want to rectify, guys, is first I said you can, then I said you can't, and you actually can, which is slide the alternator with these bolts and this plastic sort of guide here already in place. So you can put this guide with the bolt, just don't tie too much because it's conical, and as you tie the bolt that will open this plastic cap, so obviously hold everything in place. But if you don't tie it too much, you can just slide it in a sort of an angle because of the tensioner, and it slides in. So you can actually do it with this bolt and the bottom one in place. Another thing that I've done is I left the ratchet holding the tensioner, as you can see in there. Okay, I've used one of these ones on a hinge. But yeah, just to correct that you can actually do it without with the bolts in place. Okay, so all you need to do to take it off would be loose these bolts and slide it out. Obviously you need to take these two here, but you can actually do it. And let's gonna measure the alternator output. So one probe there, one here, and look at that. There's a little bit of a bad contact right here, but there it is. Okay, so the engine is now running for about 20 minutes or so. There was just a poor contact on one of the probes, but it's charging absolutely fine. No lights, no nothing. As you can see, the airbag light is already gone as well. Just stay tuned, a video will be coming in soon for that. And just a quick note I would like to make here, guys, which is regards to the pulse width modulation signal, or PWM. It depends on the car, depends on the maker, depends on the system. Some cars, that signal is actually a lean bus communication, which when I actually looked, I just thought about it now, guys, as I was finishing the video. And as you look on the signal on the scope, if you go back and you watch, you're gonna see that there is brake. So you have those sort of bits of data, and then you have a brake, then data. It looks to me, and I'm saying data because it actually looks to me like that is package of data. A PWM signal, not necessarily, but most likely would be a constant signal, which would change the width. As I said at the back, it would change the width to obviously give information to either charge more or charge less. But some of these cars, some cars, they actually have what is called a lean bus communication, or some other sort of communication based on these sort of data packages. So I could have went and researched a little bit deeper to know exactly how this system is supposed to work. I didn't. You guys, if you are really interested, you can do that yourselves. But one of the things you should be able to see when you scope that is you should see something there. A flat line is going to be a no good, as I've explained to you. So I just want to add that to the video because I don't want to just to give the information, so no one is going to pick up on that. So anyway, that's it for this video. I really hope there's some information here that you guys are going to find it useful, that you guys have learned something. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you do have any comments, any questions, you know the score, put them below. And like always, thanks for watching.